The anime begins with a girl named Midori, who finds herself buried as the endless tasks pile up, leaving her drained and longing for a break. The fatigue is visible in her eyes and the way she drags her feet, a clear sign of her struggle. After another grueling day, Midori reaches her home. But as she steps in, tired and weary, she collapses, her body unable to carry the weight of her exhaustion anymore. In this moment of helplessness, a crushing realization hits her: she might be facing her end. Tears stream down her face, not just from physical pain but from the sorrow of leaving the world without a chance to bid farewell to her loved ones, especially her parents. As she lies there, something extraordinary happens. Midori feels her soul leaving her body, a sensation both eerie and serene. Amidst this surreal experience, she encounters a divine presence, God. This encounter turns her world upside down. God, with a mysterious smile, presents her with a challenge. He reveals a world called Aztalan. It is a world torn apart by the cruelties of humans against other species. Midori's task is to judge humanity itself, to decide whether it deserved to continue existing. The weight of this responsibility terrifies Midori. The idea of making such a monumental decision is too much for her. She tries to refuse, but God understands her fears and offers her a unique power: the ability to be reborn with a special connection to animals. This intrigues Midori, a girl who has always found solace in the company of animals, particularly fond of her parents' cat and all things fluffy. Seeing her love for animals, God grants her powers related to them. Without waiting for her consent, he reincarnates her. Midori wakes up in a new world, in a grand house, surrounded by a family that looks at her with love and adoration. She has become Nefertima, a little girl in a royal family. 3 years pass, and Nefertima, now affectionately called Néma, grows up in the royal ducal family of Oz. She is the third-born child, living a life far removed from her past struggles. Her days are filled with the love of her brother Ralph and sister Kara, who bring joy to her life with simple gestures like flowers and fireworks. Néma's third birthday is a grand affair, celebrated with enthusiasm by her siblings. But what truly makes her heart full is the presence of numerous animals. She is drawn to them, wanting to feel their soft fur and bask in their unconditional love. As she runs towards her pets, she stumbles, but her loyal dog D is there to protect her, a moment that brings relief to her parents and joy to her heart. Surrounded by these creatures, Néma feels like she is in paradise. However, she soon realizes that taking care of so many animals is not as easy as she thought. We then see Néma's mom, who was really worried because she had to go to the royal palace. Her husband wasn't home, and Ralph and Kara were at the academy. This meant there was no one to look after Néma, so her mom decided to take Néma with her to the palace. Before they left, she reminded Néma to behave herself since it was her first time going outside. Néma, super excited about the adventure, promised to be good. On their way to the royal palace, Néma was fascinated by all the new faces and sights. She didn't see any signs of trouble or persecution. When they got there, her mom put a protection spell on Néma and told her to stay put while she went to take care of her royal duties. But Néma, curious and excited, forgot her mom's instructions. She saw a bird and couldn't resist chasing after it. She ran all the way to the palace garden. There, she found not just birds but also squirrels and other animals. They seemed to love Néma, and she was overjoyed playing with them. Suddenly, she noticed a pair of fierce but beautiful eyes watching her from the bushes. All the animals quickly disappeared. Néma turned her attention to these eyes. She realized she was looking at a sky tiger, a rare and majestic creature. Even though she knew she should be careful around such a beast, she was captivated by the sky tiger and couldn't help but feel a connection to it. The sky tiger, a large and majestic animal, licked her, showing that he liked her. Néma felt comfortable with him and enjoyed how fluffy he was, feeling like she was in a whole new world. It was unusual because the sky tiger, usually a fierce beast, let her sit on his back without any fear. Néma took this chance and climbed onto the sky tiger's back. The sky tiger then took her to his master, a prince. The prince was shocked to see a little girl riding his sky tiger, Lars, because Lars usually didn't get close to anyone else. The prince was also worried about Néma, wondering why she trusted the beast so easily. When the prince warned her, Néma looked at him and was momentarily captivated by his looks. However, she got annoyed when he picked her up and held her in his arms. Néma asked him to put her down, but the prince, finding her reactions amusing, put her on his shoulder instead. This made Néma yell and struggle, trying to get down. But then, Lars, the sky tiger, took her from the prince and put her down, which surprised the prince because Lars was never friendly like that before. The prince was impressed by Néma and asked about her parents, thinking she was lost. Néma tried to explain that she wasn't lost, but the prince didn't listen and decided to take her back to her father on Lars' back. When they reached the royal palace and found her father in the king's library, Néma ran to him. Her father was surprised and worried to see her there. The prince then told a story about how he had saved Néma, who was lost in the forest. Néma was annoyed by this lie because she wasn't lost. Her father, relieved, hugged her and thanked the prince for saving his daughter. Néma was shocked to learn that the young man she thought was just a brute was actually a prince. She decided to call him the Brute Prince. When the king himself came and introduced the prince to Néma, she realized the young man was not only a prince but the king's son. Néma used her charm to win over the king, who allowed her to come to the royal palace again. This made her very happy, but she knew she still had to face her mother's anger for not following her instructions. To calm her mother down, Néma mentioned the king's approval for her to visit the palace again. Hearing this, her mother relaxed, and Néma was excited about the prospect of meeting them again. The scene shifts to Néma's mother, who gives Néma some important advice. She tells Néma to be careful around Lars, the holy beast, and explains about the sky tiger, which is a special animal that gets its power from something called elementalism. This is different from humans, who get their power from something called mana. Because Lars is a holy beast, he is usually only friendly with his master. Hearing this makes Néma a bit sad. Néma's mom advises her to only visit the sky tiger when she's alone. Néma seems happy with this idea, but instead of showing she understands, she quickly runs off to play with her dog, Dee. Her mom is a bit worried about how much the animals, including Lars, like being around Néma. Soon after, Néma is taken to the Magnificent Academy, where her older siblings study. Because her father is the Duke, she gets special treatment. To avoid any more trouble, her mother reminds her to stay close and hold her hand. At the academy, her parents are given special seats to watch a competition that is set up by the teachers using magic. Néma is really impressed with the competition ground. The first round of the competition is between her brother Ralph and another competitor. The competitor looks tough, and Néma is a bit scared for her brother. Both Ralph and his competitor have soldiers and magic master wands. When the fight starts, Néma watches nervously. Luckily, Ralph wins, knocking down his rival. Néma is so happy for her brother that she runs to congratulate him. After the excitement, Néma feels the need to go to the restroom. She feels much better after and goes to find her brother again. When she finds him, he's not alone, he's with Tristan, who is bragging about winning the competition. Néma butted into the conversation between her brother and Tristan by calling out to Ralph. Tristan made fun of Ralph, suggesting he could use taking care of his sister as an excuse if he lost the battle. This comment made Néma really angry, and she ended up insulting Tristan. Tristan couldn't handle this and was about to hit her, but Ralph stepped in to protect her before Tristan could do anything. Just then, the prince arrived, and both boys greeted him. The prince scolded Tristan for trying to hit a child and made him apologize, especially since the prince was siding with Néma. The prince thought Néma was scared of Tristan and hiding behind Ralph, but in reality, she was more wary of the prince himself. When the prince mentioned saving Néma in the forest, she quickly denied ever getting lost, grabbing his attention. The prince picked Néma up and decided he wanted her to be his plaything. Néma didn't like this idea, but when the prince offered her access to the royal palace whenever she wanted, she started to consider it. The prince also warned Tristan not to mess with Néma, claiming her as his own, which scared Tristan away. The prince assured Ralph that his father, the king, was fond of Néma and didn't mind her being there. Néma was annoyed with the prince, especially since he seemed pleased with the king's approval. The prince, misunderstanding her, thought she wanted his attention and began to playfully poke her cheeks. Ralph asked the prince to hand Néma over to him because they needed to attend Kara's trial. The prince decided to go along, not wanting to leave Néma alone. As they moved to the trial grounds, the prince suggested they treat him as a student, as he was there to watch the competition. They then focused on Kara, who was about to face a magical challenge involving a fire dragon. The prince learned that Kara had great control over fire, but needed to master water elements, making the task risky. Néma, overhearing this, was worried about the dragon. Seeing her sister's confident smile, she realized Kara wouldn't back down. Suddenly, Néma couldn't bear the thought of the holy dragon being harmed. Acting impulsively, she jumped from the prince's lap and rushed to the trial grounds. Her parents were worried as she leaped from a high wall, but she landed safely due to some magic. As soldiers prepared to confront the fire dragon, Néma stands bravely in front of the dragon, determined to protect it from harm. The dragon can speak and tells Néma that this is no place for a child. Néma tries to reason with the dragon and asks it not to harm anyone else. The dragon doesn't like how it was forcibly summoned by humans and approached with hostility. However, Néma doesn't want anyone to fight, and all she wants is to touch the dragon's scales. To her surprise, the dragon is impressed by the fearless little girl and allows her to pat it. Everyone watches this in disbelief. Néma thought the dragon would feel hot, but it's actually cool and smooth. The dragon enjoys Néma's touch and promises that if she ever needs its help in the future, it will recognize her as its master. Before leaving, the dragon gives Néma a magical orb to stay connected. Néma, to make it easier to carry, transforms the orb into a cute teddy bear with a ribbon. This orb connects their minds, allowing Néma to use the dragon's magic. The dragon introduces itself as Saul and departs. Néma's family, relieved that she's safe, embraces her tightly. Even the prince is concerned and orders the court mages to investigate. He warns Néma's father that other power-hungry individuals in the palace might want her. Then his father says that he might have to eliminate them if they try to use his daughter. Néma is then brought before important people, including the king, to discuss the events involving the fire dragon at the academy. Néma feels a little scared in front of all these important figures. Néma, her father, and mother are questioned about the agreement Néma made with the dragon. While it may not have been a formal pact, Néma can still use the power of the fire dragon. However, she hasn't received the holy blessing of the beast. Néma is confused by this turn, and the king wants to make sure that Néma won't use her power to harm the kingdom. Néma's father, Daleland, solemnly swears that Néma will never do any harm to the kingdom. He promises this on his name. If Néma were to break this vow, her father's life would be in danger. After a thorough investigation, a mage explains that the dragon's appearance wasn't due to an incorrect incantation, it was God's will. Néma believes the same, as God was the one who reincarnated her in this world in the first place. Others present also see it as God's will and believe that holy beasts exist in their land because God has high expectations for their king. They hope the king will bring an era of peace where humans rule. Néma, being smart, detects a pattern of brainwashing with a divine message in their political discussions. This is exactly why God sent her here, but she plans to take her time and enjoy the fluffy moments before making any judgments. Understanding that such conversations can be boring for Néma, the prince suggests that she go and play with the magical beast Lars. Néma is thrilled to finally have the chance to pet and interact with Lars. The prince says something to Lars, who agrees enthusiastically. Lars is excited because there's a lot of meat for him to eat. Néma decides to feed Lars with her own hands, and Lars enjoys being fed this way. After feeding Lars, Néma plays with his paws and enjoys his fluffy fur. She's delighted to play with Lars to her heart's content. While playing, she felt the warmth of the fur and sleeps. Néma looks incredibly cute and adorable even while she's sleeping, especially in the eyes of her father. Everyone watching is equally impressed with her talent. In fact, they want her to form a formal pact with the dragon as soon as possible so they can use the dragon's power in their battles. Many also want to keep her under their watchful eyes for safety. The royal general is worried about Néma's safety and suggests assigning a bodyguard to protect her at all times. Néma's father is grateful for the general's assistance. The church also expresses interest in taking Néma under their guidance, but her father declines, seeing it as nothing more than indoctrination. He strongly opposes the idea of the church being anywhere near her. Despite his objections, the church representative insists on their proposal. However, he backs down when Lars, the magical beast, gazes at him. Still, he questions whether Néma is truly his daughter, claiming that she doesn't resemble her sibling. Néma's mother steps forward and clears up the confusion by revealing that they have taken the true Mana oath. This means that if any of them were unfaithful, they would bear the mark of the fallen. There's no such mark on any of their forehead. The priest still doesn't back down and says that maybe only Néma's father had taken that oath, but Néma's mother says that they have taken their oath in front of King and ask him if he is questioning the king's judgment. The priest gets shut down, but even after this clarification, many people still support the idea of Néma going to the church. They get into an intense debate and finally concludes. Meanwhile, Néma is sleeping, and Lars starts licking her, but he's just trying to wake her up. The meeting concludes, and the king grants Néma permission to move freely within the palace. However, she'll need supervision in certain areas. The prince tells her about the various animals in the palace that she's bound to like. Later, she meets Gwyn Fields from the 2nd Brigade of the Royal Guard. The prince asks Gwyn to take Néma to the dragon stables. Gwyn isn't thrilled about the assignment, and there's some tension when he encounters a rival. Néma didn't care about their rivalry, so she asked them to take her to see the dragons. Dan, who works in the castle, showed Néma his job, and it turns out he takes care of small dragons and some dragons that can't fly. When Néma saw these dragons, she thought they were cute. She realized that Dan really loves his job. Néma wanted to pet the dragons, but she knew it would be hard. So, she tried to use the sunshine orb to make the dragons happy. But this scared all the dragons, and they surrounded Dan and Néma. They ran towards a large dragon, and for some reason, Néma knew his name was Gaizel. This surprised everyone, and even more so when Gaizel said he would play with them for a while. Néma wanted to fly through the air, so she got on Gaizel's back, as if she could fly without anything. While flying, Gaizel told Néma that he could feel the presence of the fiery dragon in her. Néma explained that she had an orb that let her talk to the dragons. Gaizel recognized her as the Maiden of the Dragons and welcomed her. He took her to a beautiful field of flowers where many other dragons were nearby. Néma didn't miss the chance to enjoy the scenery, swim in a lake, and play with the other dragons. During this time, Dan was puzzled about how Néma knew Giselle's name and how she managed to ride him, as he is a proud dragon. But the surprises didn't stop there. When Néma returned, she brought Lars with her. Now they had a little girl with the prince's sacred beast and many dragons taking care of her. Next day, Dan introduces Néma to the Beast Knight stables, home to various rare creatures, where they meet Leston Ogma, the captain of the Beast Knights Legion. Néma sees Leston and think of him as a kind guy, and introduces herself. Leston is skeptical about Néma's simplicity, especially after hearing Dan's tales of her ability to tame Giselle, the head of the dragons, who is usually untouchable by others. Eager to learn more about Néma's unique skills, Leston takes them to the magically maintained stable of horse, introducing Néma to Us, the herd's leader. Despite her attempts, Néma's taming powers don't work on Us, who remains indifferent to her advances. Leston explains Us's usual kindness, but also his occasional stubbornness and aloofness from humans. Néma, after embracing Us, understands and explains that Us, as the herd leader, deliberately keeps strangers at a distance to protect his herd. Realizing this, Leston affectionately hugs Us, apologizing for not recognizing his true intentions earlier, which pleases Néma. For a horseback ride, Dan and Néma choose Hugh, a gentle horse ideal for beginners. As they explore the beast stables, Néma eagerly anticipates interacting with the animals. Along the way, she notices baby giant birds digging holes, which Leston explains is their way of searching for food when hungry. Suddenly, the playful baby birds start chasing them, a common occurrence leading to frequent injuries among the Beast Knights. Panicked, Néma calls out for help. In response, Us, fed up with the chaos, lets out a powerful roar that scares the baby birds away, bringing a sense of relief to the group. Néma is grateful to Us for his assistance, and they continue their adventure towards the beast stables. Once there, Les points out a herd of wakas, known for their incredible speed and used as messengers in urgent situations. Néma, excited by the idea of speed, eagerly asks to ride a waka. Les hesitates, explaining that handling a waka requires skill due to their rapid pace. Néma, however, is persistent, and Les eventually agrees. They approach Yoshu, a waka, and Néma is fascinated by its smooth skin. Les provides guidance on managing the waka's speed, cautioning her about gripping too tightly, which would make Yoshu halt abruptly. Néma, thrilled, urges Yoshu to go as fast as possible. The waka suddenly dashes forward, taking Néma by surprise with its velocity, making it hard for her to breathe. Concerned, Les casts a protective spell on her, allowing Néma to safely experience the waka's swift movement. Upon completing the ride, Néma resolves not to ride a waka again, learning from Les that she only experienced about half of its maximum speed. Her reaction amuses Dan, leading to a playful argument between them. During this time, a Greyhawk, used for delivering messages, lands on Les's hand with a letter. Reading it, Les discovers there's trouble back at the stable and they need to return immediately. Néma, still eager to meet more animals, persuades Dan to visit the dragon stables. At the stables, they learn a white moose has escaped, a rare creature in the capital. Les forms a search team, reflecting on his challenging day, including Yua's fondness for Néma and Yoshu's unusual obedience to her commands. The day takes an even more surprising turn when Néma returns riding the white moose, accompanied by Lars. She explains that she found and tamed the moose while visiting Giselle. Les is astounded by her ability to tame the elusive moose and asks her to inform him in future such instances. Realizing Néma's unique gift with animals, Les feels a twinge of envy, wishing he had such a talent. The next day marks Néma's birthday. Her parents express their love and offer to fulfill one of her wishes. Néma's request is simple yet joyful, a trip to the city. On her birthday, Néma excitedly prepares for her first solo trip to the city. Her father, Dayland, initially objects, citing safety concerns, but her mother, Killa, suggests she should be accompanied by Paul and Karna. Arriving at the market, Néma is amazed by its beauty and the variety of shops. Karna explains that the royal capital is divided into 4 areas: the noble district, commercial district, common district, and industrial district. This design was the vision of the first king, who wanted the city to look splendid from above. Their first stop is at food shops, where Néma is enticed by the delicious-looking food. She asks Karna to teach her how to use the local currency. Karna explains that the smallest units are called rai, with 10 rai equaling 1 copper ingot. Néma then buys 3 chicken leg pieces for 3 copper ingots and shares them with her group, giving 1 each to Karna, Paul, and her pet dog D, celebrating her birthday by treating everyone. Next, Néma is drawn to the aroma of something sweet. She discovers a shop selling pepe, a treat made by frying boiled dough. Overjoyed, she buys 20 pepe for the price of a copper ingot, as the shop lady offers a special deal. Néma plans to share them with her family and everyone at home, impressing Karna with her thoughtfulness. Their visit continues with a stop at a tea shop. There, a girl from another table, familiar with the Os family, starts mocking Néma for her lack of magic and unusual appearance, including her black eyes. Karna, protective of her sister, sternly rebukes the girl, pointing out Néma's special status and acceptance by the royal family, and criticizes the girl for her lack of respect towards a noble family member. Néma returns home, impressed by her sister's strength. As she opens her room's door, she's greeted with a surprise birthday celebration. Everyone she cares about is there, despite their busy lives. Overwhelmed with joy and gratitude, Néma tears up, declaring it the best day of her life. The celebration is filled with joy and gifts. The queen presents her with a beautiful necklace and some potent magic stones. The brute prince arrives, too, and gives her a magical bracelet that promises to protect her from harm. Each guest brings a gift for Néma, making the occasion even more special. Les, the leader of the Beast Knight Legion, surprises her with a rainhawk, a relative of the Greyhawk. He explains his choice. Néma was fascinated by the Greyhawk, but it's too large for her to handle, so he thought a rainhawk would be more suitable. The party leaves Néma elated, feeling it's the best birthday she's ever had. She lovingly names her new rainhawk companion Nox, cherishing the special bond they will share. The next day, Néma is outside, having fun with her bird, Nox. She calls out to him, and he flies right over to land on her arm. That's when Dan comes over and notices what she's doing. He tells Néma that people who are alike stick together and mentions to Lies that he knew Néma was working on training Nox, but is amazed by how much progress she's made. Néma is always doing things that surprise them. Lies then suggests they should try to have Nox fly even further the next day. Néma nods in agreement, but it's clear from her face that she's not really happy. Dan sees this and asks her what's bothering her. Néma admits that she might not be able to hang out as much anymore because she has to spend more time on her study. Then we move to Néma back inside her room, where Margus comes in with some news. She tells Néma that she's brought over the teacher who will be taking over her lessons from now on. The next morning, Néma met her new tutor, Annalie Dessa, who came into her room to say hello. Annalie looked so elegant and proper that Néma thought she was the perfect image of a lady. But as soon as the butler left, Annalie showed her true colors. She told Néma she had to improve how she talks, especially about calling her parents Mama and Papa, which Néma agreed to. However, Néma was shocked when Annalie suddenly hit her with a stick for looking at her the wrong way. Annalie explained that as a member of a noble family, Néma must always control her emotions, no matter what. Just then, the butler came back with tea, and Annalie quickly acted nice again, pretending they were getting along great. That's when Néma's really tough lessons began. Annalie was strict, using the stick to discipline her and trying to teach her how to be a proper lady. She even said she had taught Néma's siblings, who were very talented, but she promised to make Néma just as good. After a long and tiring lesson, Néma went back to her room, exhausted. She couldn't believe Annalie had treated her brother and sister the same way and thought maybe Annalie was just playing a trick on her. Néma considered telling her dad everything, but she knew she had to handle it on her own. She made a promise to herself not to let Annalie defeat her. The day after, when Annalie noticed Néma slouching again, she didn't hesitate to correct her with a stick. But this time, Néma, instead of getting mad, gave her a super cute smile and said she'd be more careful. Annalie was taken aback by the smile, but then Néma let slip that it was just her professional smile from her old job before she came to this life. Even though she managed to handle the situation with a smile, Néma started to wonder how long she could keep this up. After they had dinner, everyone noticed Néma looking really down, which was odd because she usually never leaves anything on her plate. Her mom, Kila, tried to find out what was bothering her, but Néma just ran off to her room without saying anything. Right before Néma could disappear into her room, her brother Ralph caught her with a bit of his magic. He told her she needed to think about what to say to their mom, especially since Kila was really upset, which Néma thought was way scarier than Annalie's mood swings. Just then, their mom asked Néma straight up if Annalie was the reason she's been so sad. Néma explained she wanted to handle her problems by herself because she knew her mom would just make Annalie stop being her tutor if she found out what was happening. Her mom gently told her that Annalie is known for being super proper, and that Néma wouldn't win if she tried to face her the usual way. She advised Néma to really learn from Annalie and to understand her to get through this challenge. Before Néma could respond, Ralph did a magic trick that made all of Néma's bad feelings go away, making her feel a lot lighter. He promised he wouldn't get in the way of her dealing with Annalie, but also promised to help her feel better whenever she was down. After hearing her brother's supportive words, Néma couldn't help but smile and make a promise to herself to win this battle. She also realized just how great her brother was at lifting her spirits. A year passed, and Néma transformed into a well-mannered young lady who knew exactly how to talk, eat, drink, and interact with others like a true noble, impressing Annalie, who acknowledged her noble upbringing close to the royal family. Noticing a change in Annalie's demeanor, something Néma hadn't seen in a year, she got curious about what was on her tutor's mind. She asked Paul for some insight, and received a note explaining that Annalie's family were devoted followers of the Church of Divine Creation. Hinting at a background, Néma was skeptical, thinking them to be overly zealous and out of touch with reality. Curious about the church's stance, Néma inquired about the Aku kingdom, which was suffering from a severe drought leading to loss of lives and famine. Despite seeking aid from neighboring nations and churches, only Gash and 2 other countries had offered assistance. Néma questioned why the Church of Divine Creation hadn't offered help, expecting that they would step in during such a crisis. Annalie explained that the church believed the Aku kingdom was being punished by God for siding with the beast people, according to a divine revelation received by their high priest, and therefore, they refused to assist. When Néma asked if Annalie had ever met the beast people to justify such fear, Annalie's disturbing smile revealed a deep-seated terror, indicating that their fearsome reputation made them untouchable, and justified the church's stance in her eyes. This revelation led Néma to understand that Annalie's earlier strictness wasn't just about discipline, it was influenced by her deep-rooted belief. Shocked and angered by Annalie's narrow-mindedness, Néma couldn't hold back her disappointment, calling out Annalie's behavior as unacceptable. In response, Annalie slapped Néma, proving to her that this wasn't about education anymore. It had turned into outright violence, fueled by Annalie's insulted pride. Right after the tense moment, Néma stood up for herself, saying she wanted to be the kind of lady who makes her family proud by helping others, not just someone who stays quiet and looks pretty. She didn't want to disappoint her dad. Annalie tried to shut down the conversation by saying that politics were for the higher-ups, not for them to worry about. But Néma pushed back, wanting to learn how to be a real lady, one who's stylish and knows how to behave around men, but also stays true to herself. She questioned Annalie on how women are supposed to make men happy, but Annalie couldn't handle the question and just ran off. Later, when Dalen noticed Néma's cheek, she asked him not to retaliate against Annalie, wanting to handle the situation on her own terms. Yet, her father still warned Annalie to not repeat her actions. As time passed, Néma turned 5 and learned that her family looked after the northern part of the Gash kingdom. Dalen, her dad, planned a trip there for work and thought it would be a good experience for Néma too. She was excited to go. They used a magic circle to instantly travel to the northern lands. There, Morniskilva, the local lord, greeted them. Néma introduced herself politely, and then dashed off to explore. She was amazed by the snowy city, even more so when the snow turned into a beautiful ice shower. Dalen quickly used his magic to keep her warm, reminding her of the cold weather and the need to dress warmly. He gave her cozy clothes that made her look even cuter. Together, they set off to complete their royal tasks, making the most of their journey and enjoying the adventure along the way. Néma, the adorable girl, was excited not for the work but to meet and play with the unique creatures and monsters of the land. When they got there, the city's mayor greeted them warmly and led them to his office, where they were treated to a delicious meal, making Néma feel a bit shy. But the visit wasn't just for pleasantries. Dalen explained to the mayor that he'd heard about the troubles with monsters in the area, and planned to build outposts for knights to protect the city and keep the monsters at bay. Dalen also had a special task for Néma. He wanted her to use her dragon powers to clear the monsters from the forest. This idea made Néma nervous, as she was afraid using Saul's power might accidentally set the forest on fire. To address her concerns, Dalen suggested asking Saul for advice and to figure out what monsters they were dealing with in the Needlefrost forest. After calling on Saul, they learned that there shouldn't have been monsters there to begin with. However, now there were goblins and some rare frost spiders, but they were supposed to be much farther south. This news made Dalen suspect foul play by humans rather than a natural occurrence of monsters migrating. He decided to handle the situation himself, determined to get to the bottom of it. On the other hand, Néma wondered if perhaps a god's influence was at play. If you liked this recap and want more, don't forget to hit like and comment below.